chance to meet and note. Oh, being recorded. So, Nicole, you want to go next?
Yes, I'm Nicole Worster. I live on Fisher's Landing and been a homeowner for 14 years here and first year on the board as well. That's about it.
Brian, where you live and how long?
We moved here in 2015, and I'm on the corner of Zimmer's and what's it called, Cold Crossing or whatever. It's on the corner there, the greenhouse.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks.
Tim?
Hi, everyone. Tim Madlin. Moved here 2012 from Texas. We've been here now and got a couple kids in the Merton School District, and we're on Stillwater Court. So a lot of people drive in and figure out that that's not an outlet to the exit, but been here for 8 years and enjoy the neighborhood.
And I'm Mary Wright. This is my first year on the board also. Our entire board turned over last year. So Chad and I have lived here for about 14 or 15 years. We have a son who's a senior at Arrowhead and a daughter that went through the Merton and Arrowhead schools and has graduated from college already. So we love it here and have tons of friends and are glad to be here.
Good. You guys, since we have a few people on the call, you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves as well?
Sure, I'll have a go. My name is Barry Phillips, and my wife Sarah and I have lived here since 2016, so about 4.5 years. We also have 3 kids, and one of them just graduated Arrowhead last year. And I've got another one who's a junior this year at Arrowhead, and one in Merton Primary in 4th grade. And my wife is a teacher at Merton Primary also. And I work at Harley Davidson, so glad to be here. I'm also from Texas like Tim, so another transplant.
You guys know each other?
We also work at Harley Davidson together, and Barry and I know each other, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for hosting tonight. Thank you.
Sure. My name is Mark Henke. Been an owner, resident since 2004. We're on Coldstream. My wife's a former board member from a few years ago. And we all work from home now. We have one son who's now 13 and a half, I think.
Okay.
My name is Chad Wright. I'm married to Mary Wright, who you met a little bit earlier today. So you heard all about our family. We've been here since 2006, and I just appreciate you guys stepping up and being on the board. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you for volunteering to be on the board.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
You didn't know that when you joined the call? No. Scott?
Good evening, everybody. Scott Englehart, live on Coldstream Drive, the house with the big hickory tree. We've been here since 2015. I've got a junior in Arrowhead and a 6th grader at Merton Intermediate.
Okay, well, thanks, guys. Appreciate that. As far as hopefully you got a copy of the agenda, but what we're going to cover this evening is Tim's going to go through the financial reports, talk about some of the financial issues that the HOA is having and what we're planning on for next year, some of the unique things we've had to deal with this past year, and specifically the impact on our reserve fund. And then Mary is going to talk about some other issues regarding, we've been having some discussions lately about covenant changes and things that are involved with that. So we're just going to talk to you guys a little bit about that and how any complaints, how they go through. I think we're all the first year on this board, I believe, and it's been nice having Elite to be the third party takes care of most things for us. I understand this job was much tougher in years past. And then we'll talk about the board members for 2021, and then any comments that anybody else wants to talk about. So Tim, you want to go through the numbers?
Yeah, it looks like we may have had someone else join. I'm not sure if that's true.
On the phone, looks like.
Yeah.
Can you hear us if you're on the
And
phone?
This is
7227.
Elizabeth Bertrand. I joined. Sorry, I'm a
Okay.
bit late.
Hey, Elizabeth.
No problem
worries.
at all. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank
So,
you.
listen, I'll be honest. We've got 4 of the board members and 5 neighbors, right? So, I can certainly go through and I'll share the screen and talk about the financials and where we're at. But I'd almost like to just pause and open it up to questions. What do you guys have concerns about, right? Because this is a smaller group, and we can talk about things, and it won't necessarily be presentation of where we're at. And I say that saying, Scott, you mentioned at the beginning, you're not on the email, right? And so there certainly is a budget increase to the dues that we're talking about that in a smaller group, I'm happy to just, let's open dialogue. Let's talk.
Sure. Well, I'm okay with a budget increase. That's just the way the world works. But since you did mention it's going up, what is it going to be in the new year?
I will jump right into it then. So we're going to go from $280, and I'll share my screen in a second. But the current dues are $280. We're going to go to $320. Okay, that's a $40 increase. It's about 14%. That is sizable. That's not a insignificant amount of an increase. When I show you guys our P&L or the income statement, what you'll see, and if you guys were on the email from Elite, we've unfortunately had to draw from our reserve fund, our cash balance in the last couple of years. We got to build that back up, right? And so I won't speak for the rest of the board. Guys, please chime in and tell me where you don't agree, but I think this is a one-time increase. I wholeheartedly believe it's a one-time increase to help replenish the fund that we've drawn down on. Okay.
Yeah, that's certainly is our goal. I mean, obviously some of the things we faced the past couple of years have been surprises, and so Tim's going to talk about the fountain, which has kind of been a lots of surprises, and what we're trying to do to mitigate that unexpected expense. So we're trying to do everything we can to get our costs down, but there's just some things that we know. And so I won't steal your thunder there, Tim, but you got some numbers to show.
Oh, good. Can you guys see my screen if you're on?
Yes.
Yes.
Hopefully, and it's the fund income statement. So 130 lots is what we have in the neighborhood, times 280 is the 36,400. Okay. If you look at the year-to-date budget variance, it looks like we're way ahead, 4,900. Not true. Don't worry about that, right? Take this times or divide by 12 times 10. They annualize that. The real story is we've collected 3,500,280, 35,280. That's 4 homes that have not paid. Okay. Why that's significant is that's $1,100 that puts a direct and significant pressure on the budget, because we do basically do zero-based budgeting, where every dollar we bring in, we spend. Okay. If I drop down a line in this other income, what you see is a $4,200 transfer that comes directly from our operating account. Think of that as our own personal emergency savings, right? That's our go-to fund that we hold on.
Tim, that's the reserve account.
That is the reserve account.
Okay.
What we'll talk about, later is for a neighborhood our size, working with Elite, 70% of your operating income is kind of what your target operating reserve should be, which for our neighborhood means about 27,000. We're at about 18. So it's not terrible, but it's not great. We got to build that back, right? And And we've held the annual dues flat for a few years, but we've had to draw on that reserve, and we've got to replenish that reserve. Okay. I'll pause there. Any questions?
Yeah, Tim, what is the board doing about the delinquent payers?
That great question, Mark. And so there are notes that go out, emails that go out. One of the greatest things, and I think your wife understands from prior board membership, Elite does a lot of great stuff for us, right? But there is a point that these 4 homes, and I'm not going to publicly shame people, but that is a significant pull on the budget, right? And there are late fees, and we send letters, but at a certain point, our hands are cuffed, right, of what we can do.
Well, we have, I mean, I have talked to Elite, and there's different things you can do about a lien, but you have to do that within a certain period of once the dues are late. But the way the covenants are written, we can charge a fees that can be, I mean, they would be huge. If you look at how many days some of these dues are late, I can't remember the dollar amount it was per day, but it would be thousands of dollars they would owe. And so I think
those letters have been sent before.
What's that?
Those letters of owing thousands of dollars have been sent before by the attorney.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they've been sent to these 4 homeowners though.
So
would be in, I'm sure, their records for the association, because I don't need to know, who the the thing that that I struggle with is like somebody not paying their property taxes, right? All it does is push the expense onto the rest of us that do.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. Mark,
and that's not a very neighborly thing to do.
No.
Exactly.
You're totally right. We had 100% collection last year, plus some overage, right? This year we don't, and we'll get to the bottom of that.
So what's the recourse? And sorry to interrupt. This is Elizabeth. What's the recourse that we have for going after those who just are not complying? Is there? I mean, there's a threatening letter that's sent. I mean, at what point do you hit a wall?
Yep, Elizabeth, great question. And so yes, the recourse is there are letters that are sent when they become past due. There are fees that get added on, and ultimately there are liens put on the house. But again, it comes down to the individual homeowner, and it's, do you make that payment or not? Right?
And
I'm sorry, I missed that there was a lien placed. Okay.
Yeah, and according to Elite, and according to the covenants, we did not send them a letter regarding, or did not put a lien on within the time period required for this year. And I don't understand all that. So next year, coming up this year, we are certainly going to make sure that a lien is put in place for those who have not paid.
Doesn't Elite have some accountability in that? Isn't what we're paying them for?
Well, that's what
to stay on top of this.
Well, that's a good point, Mark. I was thinking the same thing.
I mean, what are they? If then they drop the ball, then they ought to have some accountability in this. If they didn't send out those lien notices in a timely fashion,
yeah,
or inform the board that those lien notices needed to be filled out.
Yeah, I was wondering when I got the response that did they really know the covenant inside and out or whatever, but they might not have known it till I looked into it. And
I mean, they're a professional org. That's why we hired them.
Yeah,
and they apparently knew the answer now when it was too late.
Yeah, Mark, fair point, right? And 2020 has been an unconventional year in so many standards. Like, we are working through that. This first year of having Elite fully in the first year, they are certainly doing great things for us. But this is one of those areas where, we do have concerns of just what are they managing and how do they communicate with the neighbors. But we'll figure that out.
Fair enough.
All right. So if I go back, just budget 36,400 again. 130 units times our rate, just to show you guys, and sorry for the screen advance. here is where we zero-based budget, right? Every dollar we bring in, we spend, okay? And if I scroll back up and just look at where are we from a year-to-date perspective. Again, I mentioned 35,280. That's 4 homes that have not paid. We've had to draw down on the reserve, our cash or balance sheet statement of 4,200. When I go down into the expense, then landscaping is the biggest chunk of the money that we spend on, right? That's 75% of our budget. We are now at a point where we've been operating on 3-year increments, and we are now up for renewal of a 3-year plan. We'll talk about the budget, but we are provisioning to keep Evergreen as our current landscaper. But again, 75% of the money goes to that landscaping contract. The next line is pond maintenance and management. And this is an area where the current board, we've had, again, part of the drawdown to our existing operating or reserve account has been for unbudgeted expenses on the pond. The timers on the fountains failed. We had to have people come out and look at it. The board independently made a decision a couple months back to stop that, right? So there are aerators in the pond that will still funnel air, keep water moving. It's not going to freeze over. It's not going to be a problem, but we're not going to put money into the fountain and keeping that going. That's a temporary decision to save some money, because if you look at this, this is the next biggest budget spend that we have. It's a 10% cut of our income.
And it draws a lot of electricity as well.
Correct. Questions, concerns before I move on? Okay. Our insurance, as a homeowners association, we're required to carry insurance, and it is, our annual premium is $800 a year-ish, rounding a little bit. If you look at the line items, we've spent $1,000, $292 more than the prior year. That is purely time. Okay, our annual premium really is $800. What happened a year ago was we paid every month, call it 70 bucks. You see it here, $71 a month. We started to pay that annual premium up front. And what it should save us is about $50 a year. And so you have timing of $1,000 hitting our budget now. A year ago, we were underspent by 200. So this purely is timing, corrects itself. We're going to hold that budget flat at 800. Moving down, legal, professional, other, this is purely the management fees, and this number has come down significantly since we've had Elite. And this is every year we get the letter in the mail, hey, here's your dues. If there are any kind of other additional postage fees, that gets paid here, not a significant spend. The management fee line, 1,300. This is Elite, okay? And for us, it's about $10 per lot for the entire year, which is roughly the 1,300. That hasn't changed from the prior year, largely flat. A lot of benefit that we get from Elite from a board perspective, and everyone else can attain to that. Mark, your wife had to deal with so much more than we do now. Elite really does do a lot of the heavy lifting, and it's a pretty well worthwhile investment.
It's a very worthwhile investment. One of the two big hopes that we had for bringing them in was, one, they may have some contacts to help bring some of our landscape costs. They may know of other, because of their industry contacts, they may know of other landscape companies where we could do some group purchasing, get some better rates.
Yep.
And the other benefit really was consistency. The board terms, only 2-year terms, right? There's very inconsistent handling of records when things were done by the board members who were, only in a position for 1 calendar year, and then they would hand off to someone else who did it a slightly different way, who would hand off to someone else who would do it a 3rd way and a 4th way, and it was really challenging to try and look at how are these costs trending over, a 5 to 10 year period.
Yep. Yeah.
We thank you.
Great point. Real quick, and then I will stop. The utilities expense, this is basically run rated. Okay. The one thing, like I mentioned, the board, we made a decision not to fund the continual investment in the pond and in the fountain. That should generate some savings to the electricity on the pond. Okay. Now, that is a decision we are honestly punting on. There will be some maintenance to that, but it should create some budget savings on this $2,000. All in, we are tracking to be, I'd say, in line. Again, think about that very first line. Our overage from a dues income perspective, it isn't real. We're tracking to be spending what we are going to spend. I'll flip to this view if you guys can see this. Very similar structure. The same 6,000 that you saw is here, October year to date. We still have expenses for November and December that are going to come in. Quite honestly, we still have expenses for January and February. Where this projects is that we're going to end the year roughly $800 in a surplus. Not a surplus. We got to refund that reserve account. But this is preliminarily where we expect the year to finish. Again, I'll pause. Questions?
So even though we're replacing the surplus, we're still in the hole for the year. $400 or so projected that we've taken out of the account just to cover some of the other costs that came up.
Yeah. So Mary, good point. This becomes important. This also becomes important, right? Because people have now paid the dues. We're not collecting more money, right? Mm-hmm. There are bills in January and February before people start paying again. This amount should cover basically what we expect in invoices or bills for the 2 months. This is the big part that we have to worry about and think about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tim, could you hide the ribbon bar so you can see a little more of the spreadsheet?
Yeah, let me just.
How to do that?
Oh, you sound more educated than me.
It's the up arrow that's right there. That's the one. Beautiful.
Okay. So Mark, for your benefit and what you're seeing here, budget from 2019, okay? Budget from 2020, where I project 2020 to end, which is truly, honestly, it's run rated on expenses for the last 10 months. Mm-hmm. Okay. There is, I'm not gonna lie, there is some cushion here where, because of the decisions the board made, I don't think our pond electricity is going to hit the same rate. I don't think this pond maintenance is going to hit the same rate. We might end a little high from here. Again, that has to pay for January and February bills. Any dollars are going to go to that reserve, right? And funding this drawdown that we've had to take in the last couple of years.
So looking at 2019, it looks like we were $3,400 over budget in 2019. Is that accurate? Because the operating, okay, so that came out then, and then we took 4,200 out again. So every year we're drawing, somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,500 to $4,000 just to cover our operating expenses.
Correct. This is a
Okay.
year-over-year budget view. We did draw down the operating account in 2019, and we continue to draw down. So, Mary, great transition. Here's where we stand from an operating account, okay? And this is truly the money that we generate and hold in reserve, and think about it like our own personal family emergency fund savings account, right? We came into the year at $22,250. We have had to draw down. Now that number has bled down in the last 3 to 4 years, right? I don't have that history here, but we had to draw it down 4,200, which ties back to the number you had seen before. We're sitting at 18, okay? And again, to my point earlier, with Elite, you know, when they look at their clients in the area, 70% of your income is kind of your target. A neighborhood our size, that means 27,000. We're certainly not there. We're not in a bad spot, but we need to build that back. We're at a critical point of we have to fund that reserve account, because it truly is those one-time expenses, those big budget overages or whatever it is. We're not there. We've been bleeding it down. We've punted on that decision. It's now time to build it back. Okay, so 18,000, just keep that in mind.
Tim, are you going to discuss, here's some background noise, but are you going to discuss, you know, a potential future large expense or?
Yeah, so what Brian's talking about, our pond, right? Our pond is actually, it's regulated by the state, by the DNR. Technically, every 10 years, they can come and ask for it to be dredged. That is a cost that comes directly to the HOA. The latest estimates we have is 20,000. Okay. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that is one of those potential expenses that could happen. And our reserve account, we have to provision and start to think about how do we build that up so that we don't have a case where we have as a neighborhood, a $25,000 bill and we don't have money to pay for it, right? One example. There are others. We've had, and Brian, you can help me with this one, but trees. There are dead trees in the neighborhood that we've gotten quotes on that cash comes out and we got to deal with removing trees. That is not something our current budget provisions for. Our reserve is that slush fund. I hate to say that word, but that is the fund that helps us pay for those unexpected, unbudgeted expenses.
Tim, I think in years, in a few years past, going back from the last two and prior to my tenure, there were some capital improvements with regard to large landscaping projects in 2017, and that was a drain on that reserve fund balance. And it was a really healthy balance. And because it was so healthy, that 2017 board felt that they could do some, be proactive and use some of those funds for capital improvements. And then, like you said, you have unexpected expenses that come up, and that's where that money, what it's there for, really.
Yep. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that perspective. All right, other questions on the reserve balance? Otherwise, I will turn to the favorite topic. All right, so let's talk about 2021. So what the board is proposing is an increase to the dues, unfortunately. I get this has been a crazy, unconventional year. The last thing I want as a homeowner is to increase dues. But again, like I said, the unpaid dues, the fact that we need to replenish that reserve account, what we are proposing, what we've determined is a $320 dues amount for 2021. Okay, that is a $40 increase. It's 14%. Again, not insignificant. That drives $41,600 of income. Again, we follow a zero-based budgeting approach. Every dollar we bring in goes out in terms of expense. Our largest expense is that landscaping contract. We now have to renegotiate what is a 3-year contract. What we've provisioned for is just shy of $29,000, continuing our contract with Evergreen. We are still sourcing contracts and still getting quotes. We have ranged from 22,000 to 38,000. Okay. And in prior years, we've gone on the lower end, and you get what you pay for. We're certainly not looking to increase that. So right now we've held as a placeholder, just keeping our current contract with Evergreen. That is slightly up, minimally. It's about $1,500, but inflation, that would lock us in again for a 3-year deal. Pond maintenance, we provisioned $3,500, which if you look kind of through the line items, holds us to the original 2020 budget. Again, this year we experienced through the 4,200 that we had to draw from reserve, some unexpected cost. I think we can avoid that and hold down to a $3,500 number on the pond maintenance. Again, that is something we continue to watch, we continue to think about, but I think that's a fair estimate. Insurance is flat year over year. That is our annual provision. We're holding nothing for legal fees. There used to be a line item for an electrician on our entrance. We don't hold any dollars for that. The electricity on the entrance lights, we're holding at a kind of run rated flat rate for the year. Pond electricity, again, to the comment of we've pulled back on the fountain. We think that should have a direct reduction in the amount of expense coming through electricity. A little bit of we're not sure, right? The trend has been downward. I don't know where that dollar amount's going to go, but we feel comfortable with $1,600 for the year. Management fees are largely flat. That's our $10 per lot for the year. And then you have admin, office, again, minor spend, mailing, just general expenses. The big item that you see is the $4,500, right? And this again is our increase in the dues of $40. And the intent is to replenish that reserve account, okay? And I won't speak for the rest of the board, but personally, as a homeowner, my goal, my strong desire, this is a one-time increase. We're gonna replenish that reserve, and I will fight, like, I'll fight hard. We're gonna bring dues back down, right? But we have to address that deplenished reserve, and we got to get it back to a normal level that helps cover things, and that provides a little bit of a contingency fund, right, for the organization. So questions, comments, concerns? I know a limited audience.
So Tim, I'm sorry, I had joined the meeting late. I had a board meeting for work and couldn't make it until I just hopped on. Yeah. I know Mark said you'd already covered this, that there were 4 homeowners that have not paid their dues in 2020.
Correct.
And you know, that's personally kind of a hot spot for me. because I worked really hard in 2018 to get homeowners that hadn't paid their dues to bring their accounts current with us. And I'm sorry, it might be a little off track, but you know, what's the board's approach to this? And I mean, you know, where is Elite's accountability as far as maintaining the books and being accountable to informing the board that, you know, we have homeowners that haven't paid their dues?
We are certainly in touch. Okay. And Elite has sent letters and follow-up letters, and we've imposed late fees at this point. But that is something we continue to track, right? Because honestly, for homeowners, I mean, for homeowners is the entire management fee for Elite, effectively. Right. If people don't pay, that has a direct and massive impact to this budget.
Right. So what's Elite saying as far as being accountable for this? I mean, are we considering, you know, saying to them, hey, this is on you? You know, I guess I just really struggle with that. And does the board need to take a more firm approach with these homeowners with regard to, you know, moving forward in the lien process?
Who's talking right now?
Meg Henke.
Hey, Meg, this is Brian. Yeah, point taken. We did discuss this a little earlier, and I think we need to take it more seriously. I did follow up with Elite when I found out about this, and I kind of read through the covenants to understand what was the, you know, what was our avenues did we have to put more pressure, and Elite responded back, you know, I asked about the lien, and they said, well, we have a certain period of time, I think it's 2 months or whatever, to file the lien after they're late, and it's gone too long beyond that, so we have to wait till next year to do that. I don't quite understand all that, but anyways, my response back was, well, there's no dates needed, or there's no suspense needed to file fees, and they're substantial. I mean, at this point, it'd be thousands of dollars that they would owe, and I think they had to get a letter to do that. But I had not followed up with Elite, so it's a good point. I've written down a note here to follow up with them tomorrow and get serious about getting paid with these 4 homeowners if they haven't paid yet.
I mean, just as a point of reference, when I took over in 2018, we had one homeowner who had not paid their dues in 5 years. Wow. Now, as a board, we were a 3-board group. My colleagues, 2 out of 3 of them voted to not kind of apply pressure to this homeowner. Their late fees and charges were in the tune of close to $2,000, and that does make a huge impact on, you know, it's 5% of our operating budget. And so I had drafted a letter, and it's out in the Google Drive, Brian, if you still have access to that. And if you want to follow up with me offline, I'm happy to share with you my experience and some of the documentation and things of that nature. I'm happy to do that. I just really feel strongly like we need to apply more pressure here.
I agree.
Yep.
Agreed.
I agree too. It's on my list to get done this week. With regard to Elite, I think they dropped the ball for sure. There's part of me that wonders how much of a deal do we want to make with that? And I look at what they charge us, and $1,300, and my goodness, I can't imagine they can afford to do it for $1,300. And the benefit it's providing the board members versus what it was when you were there and having to do all that on your own. I can't imagine we want to go away from them, but certainly I can put the pressure on that. Hey, you screwed up, and you need to fix this. And so as someone else said before you got on the call, that they should have known the dates, and they should have applied the lien while we were still within the required period.
Mhm.
All right, before I stop talking, other questions on financials?
I have a question.
Sure.
My name is Brandon Hall. I am in one of the houses that actually backs to the pond.
Yeah.
And maybe this was addressed. I'm sorry, I came in about 20 minutes late. Has any thought been given to just doing away with the fountain and just running the aerators? I can tell you, as one of the people that lives by the pond, I would not mind that.
So Brian, that's a great
Brandon.
question, or Brandon.
Yes.
Yes. That's effectively what we have decided. There are 3 aerators right now. We're running those. We have stopped anything on the fountain. Now we're entering winter months, right? So the fountain's not going to run. But there were some significant charges in terms of fountain failure, people coming out to reassess it. We're going to reevaluate that going forward, but right now the fountain is not going to run. And we will allow those aerators to go so that there is airflow and movement of water, not to wreck what is the pond, but hopefully that does generate some significant savings from a budget perspective.
Okay.
Board, please chime in.
Yeah, I think we turned it off midsummer, the fountain.
Yeah, it wasn't
That's through
running.
July.
It wasn't running very often, and I don't want to speak for my neighbors who also live around the pond, but personally, for me and our family, we view it more as an annoyance, because when the wind picks up, it blows mist everywhere. It's louder. I'd rather listen to the birds. So you're not going to get an argument from me if you don't run it.
And
That's
just,
great feedback. Thank you.
yeah, we had spent the money to get it repaired, and then to your point, you said it wasn't running a lot because it broke again right after we'd paid for it. So it's like, how much more money we invest in this thing,
Yep.
Yeah, there's something
Okay.
with the motor, wasn't it? That's the motor
Yeah, and they
wasn't
wanted
working quite right. So, and I have heard from like maybe one neighbor that, of course, they do like the fountain, but I mean, I kind of said, well, do you want to pay for it yourself? Because it is such a money pit right now. So,
Nicole, what's your thought? You guys live right across the street from it.
yeah, I mean, sure, I like the pond. I mean, the fountain part of it at times, but it does do the blowback with the misting and everything. And it's also, as long as the pond is clean and the aerators are working, I'm fine with that. Because I mean, there are a lot of people who use it for fishing and everything. So,
Yes.
yeah, I think as
Nicole-
long as the aerators are on.
Nicole said we just had to turn it back on when she got ready to sell her house.
Oh, that is true. I did say that. Yes. Turn it on for that, and that's it.